On September 2nd, 2025, the United States blew up a boat near Venezuela. That boat, the United States says, was carrying drugs from a Venezuelan gang.
We just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat. And you'll be seeing that and you'll be reading about that.
The US government posted this video showing us killing 11 people along with the drugs they were supposedly carrying. Is this a legal problem? Yes, but no. Earlier this year, the United States named certain Venezuelan gangs as terrorists. What our administration believes that it means is that they can use certain powers against these quote-unquote terrorists to stop their activities from hurting Americans. And that's maybe the key here, hurting Americans. This boat was more than 1,000 miles from the United States. So the question becomes, was that boat dangerous to us? Are drugs a problem in this country? Absolutely. It causes addiction. It ruins lives. But the question I'll direct you to is whether this boat was a specific danger to us. The United States had not conducted a unilateral military attack in Latin America since 1989 when we invaded Panama. So for a lot of you, the United States had never taken military action in Latin America through your entire life. But this one drug boat is the reason why we decided to conduct a military strike. Post September 11th in 2001, the United States passed the AUMF. That law authorized the United States to take certain actions against the target at that time, Al-Qaeda. The purpose of that law was to stop terrorists from potentially killing and harming US citizens. And that's apparently the authorization that the United States government is seemingly using 24 years later against gangs in Latin America.
He's going to use the full power of America and the full might of the United States to take on and eradicate these drug cartels, no matter where they're operating from and no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity. Those days are over.
I'll gently suggest to you it is an extreme stretch to use that law to target drug dealers so far away. And my problem with that is we'll probably never get to the real answers of who those people were. What was the reason that we had to stop this boat by killing people? Because I worry about the long-term effects. Now is the precedent that anytime there's a drug dealer outside of our country, we can drop a bomb on them? Can we send an assassin to go and kill them? Can we go in any country we want at any time and kill their drug dealers? Even if we don't know that those drugs are necessarily going to come back into this country. The United States needs to defend itself. There's no doubt about that. But the reason that we have laws that prescribe what we can and cannot do, especially outside our borders, those laws are weakening. So was this an act of war? Sort of. The War Powers Resolution of 1973 says that Congress must authorize war. We've seen this play out in Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places where the US has used military force across the globe. The president needs to go to Congress and Congress needs to approve the US entering a war. On paper, was this an act of war? It can't be, because Congress didn't approve it. So the White House has been extremely careful to not say this was war and to look for other sources where it can authorize the use of such deadly force against foreign citizens outside of our borders. Now, there is this concept of international law. International law says when you can and cannot take military action outside of the bounds of your country. International law isn't really law. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, for example, has had a warrant out for his arrest pursuant to international law for a long, long time. And you know what? Nobody cares. That's because there isn't a governing body of this concept of international law that has any sort of power to do anything when the law is broken. There's something called the International Criminal Court. That is the governing body of international law, at least it's supposed to be. And countries sign on to be part of the ICC. You know who's not a member of the ICC? The United States. And that's because we've taken the stance that the international community cannot govern us. So did the United States violate international law? I would tell you yes. And that's because this boat with 11 people on it, even if it had drugs on it, was not a direct threat to the United States. But what's anyone going to do about it? Nothing. Big picture, I worry about the ramifications of our standing in the world, which I would tell you has been going down the tubes recently. And I worry about the effect that this will have on American citizens abroad, because when we go places, we are subject to other countries' laws. And those rights that we have in this country aren't always afforded elsewhere. How do we stop drugs from funneling across our border and hurting our citizens? We should stop doing drugs. I don't mean to just sit here and tell you, oh, don't use drugs. Y'all do whatever you want, but don't use drugs and then complain about drugs coming into our cities, coming into our states, and coming into our country. The way to stop the supply of something is to reduce the demand. If you want sellers to stop selling you things, stop buying them. That's the way to solve the drug problem in this country. So this is the part of the video where I'm supposed to tell you, here's what you can do. Whew. Well, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. While I don't have the solutions, what I'll tell you is all we can do is talk about it. Talking is the first step to any solution. Getting awareness, telling people what's going on, having people ask questions. So what you can do is stay active, stay involved, because I believe that civil discourse, people talking about issues that affect all of us, that is the first step to any solution. Understanding what other people think, finding some common ground, and then working towards a solution.